On April 6, 2026, 4 human beings flew over the far side of the moon for the first time in more than 50 years, and what they saw left the astronauts themselves speechless, left the scientists at Mission Control speechless, left the entire global scientific community speechless. It was not what anyone expected. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what Artemis II found on the far side of the moon, thing by thing, image by image. And I'm going to explain why some of these discoveries still have no complete scientific explanation. Let's start with something that has been obsessing scientists for decades. Imagine 3 perfect concentric rings carved into the surface of the moon, one inside the other, like a giant bullseye almost 1,000 kilometers in diameter, carved into lunar rock 3.7 billion years ago. This structure exists on the far side of the moon, and until April 6, 2026, no human being had ever seen it complete, not once, not ever. In the entire history of humanity, from Earth we can only see the edge of this structure because it sits right on the boundary between the near side and the far side. The most powerful telescopes in the world could capture only a fraction of it. Robotic probes had photographed parts of it from space, but no human eye had ever processed it in real time, with the full capacity of the human brain to detect patterns, anomalies, and details that an automatic camera simply cannot register. Until Victor Glover. When the moon rotated in front of the window of the Orion capsule during a navigation maneuver, Glover picked up his 400mm zoom camera and photographed something that left him without words. "It's clear we're not on Earth," Glover said in direct communication with Mission Control, because that structure cannot be seen complete from Earth, and what we're seeing right now is already something special. But what makes the Oriental Basin so mysterious? Why does it obsess scientists so much? The 3 perfectly concentric rings that form this structure challenge every current model of crater formation. When an asteroid impacts a planet or a moon, it normally creates a simple circular crater, but the Oriental Basin has 3 perfect concentric rings, mathematically precise. The current scientific theory says these rings formed when the impact was so massive that it literally liquefied the lunar crust, and that molten material spread outward like a giant wave in slow motion, solidifying into 3 concentric waves of mountains. It sounds logical, but there is a problem. Nobody has been able to replicate this exact process in a laboratory. Computer models cannot fully explain why the rings are so perfect, so symmetrical, so mathematically regular. And what the Artemis II photos revealed in high resolution, seen with human eyes, is right now generating intense debates in the scientific community about whether our current understanding of how these structures form is correct, or whether there is something more that we still do not understand about how lunar rock behaves under impacts of that magnitude. But the Oriental Basin was not the only thing that surprised the crew. There was more. During the 7-hour flyby, the astronauts also flew over the Hertzsprung Basin, another giant of the far side, and it also has concentric rings, 2 this time. Also perfect, but interrupted by the Babcock crater, a more recent impact that collided with the older structure and partially deformed it, creating a landscape that scientists describe as a window into 2 completely different eras of the solar system's history, layered on top of each other like chapters of a story that no one had been able to read complete until now. The chief scientist of the mission described these images as an absolute treasure for lunar science. Decades of theoretical models now being compared with observations made with human eyes for the very first time. And here comes something that scientists at Mission Control were not expecting to document in real time. Flashes of light on the dark surface of the moon. During the solar eclipse that the crew experienced, with the moon completely blocking the sun and plunging the satellite into darkness from the perspective of the Orion capsule, the astronauts saw something on the dark surface of the moon that triggered shouts of excitement both inside the capsule and at Mission Control in Houston. 6 bright, rapid, pinpoint flashes in different parts of the dark lunar surface. Commander Reed Wiseman was the first to report it. "There was a bit of commotion up here," said Wiseman. "They were definitely impact flashes on the moon, no question. Meteors hitting the moon in real time. Seen by human eyes for the first time in history, but what disturbed the scientists was not seeing the impacts themselves. That was something they knew could happen. What disturbed them was the frequency. 6 impacts in less than 1 hour of observation over a relatively small area of visible lunar surface. From that perspective, it suggests that the moon is being bombarded by meteorites at a frequency far greater than current models predict. And if the moon is being constantly impacted at that frequency, what does that mean for the Artemis IV astronauts who are going to walk on that surface in 2028? What does it mean for the permanent lunar base that NASA wants to build on that same surface? What does it mean for the human beings who are going to live there? These are not rhetorical questions. These are questions that NASA's scientific team is answering right now with Artemis II data. Because the answer literally determines whether the lunar base they want to build in the coming years will be safe for its occupants or not. But there is something else, and this is perhaps the most disturbing observation of everything Artemis II saw on the far side of the moon. Christina Koch described something that no astronaut had ever reported before with this level of precision and this level of detail. While observing smaller, more recent craters on the lunar surface, Koch noticed that they glowed in a completely unexpected way. What it really looks like is a lampshade with tiny pinhole openings, Koch said in direct communication with Mission Control. They are so bright compared to the rest of the moon. The recent craters were glowing with an anomalous intensity that did not correspond with the expected solar reflection models for the lunar surface. The current scientific explanation says that material freshly exposed by recent impacts has not been processed by space weathering, the gradual process by which solar radiation and solar wind darken and chemically alter the lunar surface over billions of years. Fresh material, just exposed by a recent impact, would not have gone through that process yet and would therefore reflect more light. But Koch, who is a scientist as well as an astronaut with a doctorate in aerospace engineering, said that the intensity of that glow was something she had to see with her own eyes to believe. That no photograph, no robotic probe data, no computer model had prepared her for the reality of what she was looking at, and the data being generated by that direct observation, made with scientifically trained human eyes, is right now being analyzed in laboratories around the world. And then there was the eclipse, 54 minutes of totality, the moon completely blocking the sun as seen from the Orion capsule. An experience that no human being had ever had from that specific perspective in deep space, more than 400,000 kilometers from Earth. From Earth, total solar eclipses last at most a few minutes. The longest ever recorded was 7 minutes and 32 seconds. The Artemis II crew experienced 54 minutes of complete darkness, and at the edge of the moon during that eclipse, the astronauts saw something that the scientific community is still actively debating. A completely unexpected halo of light surrounding the dark lunar disk, with structures that the astronauts themselves described in live communication as baby hairs glowing at the lunar edge. Thin filaments of light extending from the edge of the moon into the surrounding space. NASA officially stated that the scientific community is investigating whether this effect was produced by the solar corona, the outer layer of the sun's atmosphere that is normally invisible to the naked eye, by zodiacal light, a band of diffuse light produced by interplanetary dust that reflects sunlight, or by a combination of both that had never been documented from that specific perspective in deep space. They do not have an answer yet, and for a space agency that has spent decades studying the moon with the most sophisticated instruments humanity has ever built, that is not something that happens often. 4 astronauts, 7 hours over the far side of the moon, 10,000 photographs, and a list of phenomena that science is still processing weeks after the crew returned home. Perfect rings that challenge impact models and whose mathematical precision has no complete explanation. Meteor flashes at a frequency that exceeds what current models predict, and that raises critical questions about the safety of future crewed missions. Craters glowing with an intensity that only a trained human eye could detect, and that is now generating new scientific research, and a halo of light during the eclipse that the best astrophysicists on the planet still cannot fully explain. The far side of the moon has spent billions of years guarding its secrets in the darkness. Artemis II has barely begun to reveal them, and what comes next with Artemis IV in 2028, when astronauts walk for the first time on a surface that no human being has ever set foot on, is going to change everything we think we know about the moon. And perhaps about ourselves. If this video opened your eyes as much as it opened mine, share it with someone who needs to know this, because what we just saw up there is only the beginning.